Welcome to the Saorsa Podcast. Today on the show, we have Rosendo Garibay. Rosie is a friend of mine who I met through rowing. He's been a good mentor. He's a great guy, a teacher, starting a business. And with that, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Rosendo. I also go by Rosie, mostly a nickname I picked up in high school. I don't know, I've been living in Chico for about 8 years now. I'm originally from Fresno. I have been all over the place in terms of work and education. Never really thought I'd find myself being a teacher earlier on, but through all the classes that I've taken and tutoring opportunities, coaching opportunities, I've grown to love teaching and the act of getting someone to learn something, whether it's studies or activities like rowing, for example, and that's how I met Duncan. I've just really come to enjoy that aspect, just getting someone to learn something and being able to help someone achieve some type of goal towards something else. But in the process of I've started branching out and in this case pursuing my own goals and not just teaching. Outside of teaching, I want to do my own thing. There are different fields that I want to get into, but one of them being a karaoke restaurant bar setup somewhere in downtown Chico. But yeah, overall, I'm just a guy who likes too many things that I don't really know where to start. But okay, I've been figuring it out along the way.
Right on.
So yeah.
So on that note, I know it took you kind of a while to get through college. What were the biggest benefits of kind of taking your time to go through?
Taking my time to go through it? Actually, I did not. I think that was it for me. I think I just didn't really rush myself, actually. Transitioning from high school to college is different. I know that becoming a senior in high school, it was I never really thought about college much. And I was honestly just thinking about the classes that I was taking at the time and seeing which ones I actually liked.
So on that, are you the first in your family to go to college? Do you have some siblings or parents?
I would say so. Yeah. Me, I don't think any of my sisters did, actually. I don't think they went to college. If they did, I don't really remember much.
Okay.
Or maybe I just didn't ask. But all I know is that college wasn't... College was definitely put out there only because it meant success. Like, you want to go to college to succeed in doing some certain things, and it wasn't until almost graduation where it's like, oh, I should really apply to colleges. But ultimately went with a community college.
Okay. Which one was that?
Fresno City Community College.
Okay.
And I was there for almost 5 to 6 years.
Okay. Yeah. And what were some of like the highlights of going to a city college?
The highlights, cost effectiveness, very cheap.
Sure.
And that gives you the opportunity of floating around. Since I qualified for financial aid, I really had I had the benefit of getting refund checks, so I was able to use that to buy books. Sometimes I would use it for other things, but it really helped me out with kind of figure out which classes I'd want to go into, which ones I liked. There are counseling sessions that you can get into if you need help picking out your classes, and I like that, but I found that I was a little bit more in control of my own schedules a lot, and I liked researching and finding out what I needed, in this case, to transfer, figuring out which classes I should take if I wanted to go into this major, and so on.
And what major was that?
I had originally went to Fresno City thinking I might do kinesiology because I excelled in my anatomy and physiology class in high school. So I figured, maybe something associated with kinesiology.
Sure.
Took a few physics classes because I knew I needed to do that in order to progress into that major. And then I quickly changed my mind into doing a physics major because I did so well in physics. Tutored physics. And
was that your first time really teaching?
Yeah, in that aspect, yeah. Tutoring, learning how to tutor is one thing that I found that I was able to do well in. And I was able to figure out that, hey, I might be actually good at something.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, it was kind of just like the seeds of teaching in general, but I kind of just leaned towards, hey, since I'm good at this, I'll major in this. And then that's how I ended up in Chico.
Okay. And what brought you out to Chico of all places? Why not go to, CSU Fresno, for example?
For one, I wanted to branch out. I didn't want to stay in the same town and grow up, essentially.
Sure.
I felt like I needed to go somewhere new, somewhere different, somewhere that's not necessarily attached to the comfort that my friends and family provide. And I felt like if I really wanted to push myself, I would want to go somewhere that I don't really have that safety net, I guess. In this case, I did decide to stay in California. I personally do not like big cities too much, so I figured I'd go with smaller locations, something a little bit more distant. So I decided on potentially going into Sonoma, Humboldt, or Chico. After talking it over with one of my professors, my anthropology professor, and my physics professor in Fresno City, we made the decision to apply to Chico State, and that was the only place I applied to.
Right on. Hey, I'm similar story. I basically applied to Cal State East Bay, a school I wasn't going to get into, but I thought I could because I was a narcissistic 18-year-old, and Chico State because my mom said, you need a backup school.
Yeah.
And so
was that the only?
I got into CSU East Bay and then Chico, and I said, I need to get away from my family. I need to grow up somewhere else, and so.
That's good.
Yeah. So you get to Chico.
Yeah.
And you find the rowing team. How did that happen?
Honestly, it was, I didn't expect that. I actually never thought about rowing. It wasn't until I got up here. One of the big things for me was sports, I suppose. I never really did sports in a, as a neighborhood delinquent, just going around and, meeting up with your friends and biking around, skating around.
Sure.
That's what I was used to. I was never really used to, a formal athletics program, so I never did, little leagues or some tag football scenario. I don't know. I never really got into actual sports with the team associated with the school. I never really got into that.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I really wanted to do was get a feeling of what it meant to be on a school team. So I came to Chico kind of maybe I'll consider rugby or something. So I was looking for the rugby table, and it happened to be the first.
You saw the R, and it was rowing.
In this case, it happened to be rowing. Yeah, no, they had a club day the first week of school. It was fall 2013. Just roaming around, just checking out all the club tables. And they gave us these cards where we get stamps from each table, and if you accumulated a certain number of stamps, then you got your free burger and fries and such.
Yeah.
So I was going around, and I happened to see the rowing table, and yeah, that's pretty much how it all started, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you have some tutoring experience. You're at Chico.
Mm-hmm.
You're on the rowing team.
Yeah.
And then you became a coach. How did that transition happen?
The transition was unexpected. Well, in a way. I just found myself, I became really passionate about rowing only because of the opportunity that's out there. So for one, learning a different type of sport, a sport I didn't really know about, being on the water was really nice, unique. Rowing together, rowing as a group, I really liked just the team dynamics. You can just have people from different backgrounds, and you're all coming together and doing this one activity in a repetitive, very trance-like, sport. And once I started doing it the first year, I really got interested in learning more about it. So I started tinkering with all the mechanics and the hardware and learning more about the actual composition of the boats and the tools that we use, and fine tuning and working on things if things break, and what can I do to make things better. And then from there, I just kind of started branching out. So it was almost like an obsession, really, because it started growing. Then at that point, then the next step is being a coach, only because it just kind of follows a certain pattern, at least with Chico State Rowing. You row on the team and you become an officer, and then you switch over to coaching. For a lot of people,
never heard that story. Yeah.
For a lot of people, you don't really know what happens when you graduate. So then it's like, I don't know what to do. I'm waiting for applications. I'm waiting for, my interviews to come in with your career or your job, or you're in this transitionary period where I don't really know what my next step is. And I've always been pitching the idea for a lot of rowers that, hey, you can just stick around for a semester or a year and do coaching for a little bit as you get your groove. And it usually helps them out greatly in terms of developing them into better individuals. But I've kind of just got into that point, and then I just stayed.
Okay.
So I've just been helping out new coaches figure out this whole, dilemma once you get into that post-school time and adult times afterwards.
Oh.
So that right in between, that's pretty much, I guess it's a very normal thing to not know what you want to do. So then you fill the void with something that's a little bit comfortable, but at the same time, a little bit challenging.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I had a question and then I forgot it. But I had a really good question too.
What was it?
It was something related to rowing.
Something related to rowing? Was it coaching? The transition?
Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say. So I'll wait till you put it in your water and then.
Sure. So what about it?
Okay. So speaking of the transition out of school, I know you recently finished a degree in history, right? History and education, or
social science degree is a specialization option, and my primary focus was anthropology. My secondary was history.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. And so now you've gone into teaching, which has been a passion of yours sounds like ever since you were a tutor and then coaching.
Yeah.
What's that transition been like? Tell us about your teaching experience now, being a high school teacher.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a high school teacher. Yeah. It's been of a roller coaster mostly, just kind of figure out what options I actually have, not knowing the full scope of everything. I always understood the traditional route. In this case, you go through your bachelor's and then you go into a credential program, you do student teaching, and you get your job. And then you're now a teacher, right? I always understood that was the regular format. As I spent more time in this case researching, found out that, hey, there are hybrid programs you can do where it's a master's program that's kind of tied in with the credential program. So that way you're able to, get higher education, get your credential, and end up having a higher base pay as a teacher. So that seemed like that was the route I wanted to take. Still follow the same traditional route where you do school, student teaching, and then you ultimately get your own classroom and teach, and you get paid. It wasn't until I started looking through the rabbit hole of YouTube that I found out there's another route, apparently. It's like an internship route. It's more so having to do with the supply of teachers. So what I ultimately got into was substituting first. Sure. So this is during coronavirus, and they allowed people to waive the requirement for the CBEST.
And the CBEST
it's like the basic skills exam that you need to do. I mean, it's required for you to complete these when you're applying to credential programs.
Sure.
But essentially, for you to become a substitute teacher, you just need to have a bachelor's degree, and you have to have your CBEST taken care of.
Okay.
And what I found out during this time was, in this case, 2019, roundabout there, they were waiving that requirement. And so all you needed for you to start subbing was your bachelor's degree.
Okay.
So I had just graduated and was like, all right, cool. I want to get into teaching. I figured I would get into subbing and see how I like it. Maybe I'll jump around with elementary, middle school, high school, and see which ones I like, and then go from there. But with this other route that I had found out about, it has to do with, I guess it has to do with the teacher population in your particular district. If there happens to be a small group of credentialed teachers and a lot of positions available, then they start pulling from a pool of people, in this case the subs, to kind of fill in the spots. Mm-hmm. So you can have staff filling in teacher positions even if they're not credentialed completely.
Sort of like long-term substitute.
Yeah, in a way, long-term substitute. Yeah, that's one of the options. Or in this case, for me, I became a teacher under an emergency credential.
Okay.
So now I'm putting in the work as a regular teacher. I just don't have my credential just yet. I have an emergency credential for the year, and I have until the end of my first year to get enrolled into a credential program.
Okay.
And then from there, I become an intern. In this case, I'll have my own classroom. I'll continue teaching, and then I'll do my credential classes on the side. In this case, in the evenings or the weekends and stuff like that. Okay. But yeah, it's something where I enjoyed the process. It's a little bit of kind of getting dropped off into the deep end. Sure. You know, you don't really know what it's like to actually teach. So it's like, yeah, trial by fire, and here we go. So I've been enjoying the process. It's a lot. I mean, I learn every single day, but that's the aspect that I learn in this case for me, like I learn best that way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right on. And so you're teaching, you're looking to get this credential program, mm-hmm. You're on the emergency credential. Are you starting in that program, or I know you said you're kind of wondering what the next steps might be? Yeah.
So now that I've finished my first semester, so I just finished fall and we're going into spring. We're about a few weeks in now. During this time, I've been figuring out, or at least trying to figure out what it is that I actually want to do. Then I finished the half year of teaching, and knowing what time I have left. You know, do I want to get into credential program, continue teaching, and then juggling the whole creating, you know, a schedule, what courses or what subjects am I teaching, you know, what's the layout of the week for the kids that I have, and what assignments am I giving them, and all that stuff. And at the same time, having to worry about my own list of things to accomplish in terms of projects or assignments or whatever for my classes. Like I haven't really started the curriculum side just yet. I'm mostly kind of just focusing on almost one thing at a time, really. But I happen to have a coworker who is teaching and doing an online credential program, and it seems it can be kind of stressful. But I feel like I just don't really understand everything just yet. So I've been trying to use my resources to figure out, you know, are there ways of extending my period before I get into credential program, or should I just go ahead and do it? It's because I'm juggling between teaching, coaching, and working everything else on the side. I haven't really decided, am I committing to one just yet? Am I putting all my eggs in this teaching basket, for example? Or do I want to kind of stay where I'm at and kind of branch out and develop everything else at the same time? I'm still figuring things out. So, okay. Yeah.
And being a coach for nearly 7 years, mm-hmm. and then now starting to teach the past couple in a professional capacity, what did you learn from coaching that's really helped you in teaching? And then the opposite of that, what have you learned from teaching that now really helps you in coaching?
I see. Well, what I learned in coaching is connecting with people and realizing that you have a concept that you want to teach, a concept that you want someone to whether it's the mechanics of rowing, so the whole system of the legs operating and the core and you know, the blades going into the water, and just the movement of the body in the boat and how the body moves through the water. And there might be certain little aspects where you might be trying to teach a part of it, and the way that you present it to a rower or to a group of rowers, some pick it up quicker than others. And then you quickly realize that everyone responds to different inputs. Some are better than others. Some things that you can say is a little bit more universal than others, and you quickly realize that. So that way, what I've enjoyed about coaching really is it's almost kind of like that adaptive ability of teaching.
Sure.
Kind of just you've built up your database of information. In this case, you're very familiar with the act of rowing, and because you're very familiar with it, you know you can describe something in more ways than just one. So you can almost like a switchblade of sorts, you're able to describe things in multiple ways, in different ways. And then once you've found that one that kind of fits into place, I feel like that aspect alone has really helped me with kind of thinking quickly, adapting quickly. And when it comes to teaching and the way back, teaching has really helped me with looking at it more as a whole. And yeah, you can plan out your day and just that, but you got to learn more about your end goal. In this case, structuring towards your end goal. For rowing, it kind of, once I started actually leading as a head coach, like for the juniors program, I did that for a little bit. I understood now is that you are essentially training up until your championships. So you got to work from backwards to where the season starts. So because I had that experience, that helped me out with teaching, in this case, being able to get the job. Yeah. But it's been tough sometimes in the teaching end, because in this case, since I jumped into teaching so late, I never really had a chance to plan accordingly. So,
and when you say so late, you mean into the year started?
Yeah. So everything was really quick for me transition wise. I learned about the job during the summer. I had applied pretty much a few weeks before the deadline. Once I found out I got the position, I was already subbing for the district, or for the school in particular. So then by then I was literally, in this case, I dropped off a cliff and then made my way into the depths of the pool.
Gotcha.
And now I'm trying to figure out
Somebody
how to swim.
pushed you into the pool.
Yeah.
You didn't get the opportunity to really hop in.
Pretty much, yeah. That's what happened. So yeah, it's because I never really had that planning phase. Yeah. Let's say you apply for a job and they'll tell you your job starts in 2 months, then you have all that time to prepare. So I didn't really have that opportunity, but the focus now is just like, well, what are you going to do with your time? So because of that, I've really been able to use coaching and teaching back and forth to help me out.
And when it comes to, as a personal apprentice, when it comes to coaching, if that's a way to put it,
sure.
Do you think being in the position where, like you mentioned earlier, over the past couple of years, you've been helping train and support the other coaches who are learning how to coach on the team, do you think that has helped you understand from a more, like, I guess, theoretical standpoint, and helped you jump in faster into actually teaching? If that makes sense?
I guess the empathetic process of just kind of getting into something new has helped me out. So since I've went through the whole like coaching process and not knowing what to do, what should I focus on? And when you start having those responsibilities, leading your own team, in this case, the novice squad, when you start when you start coaching, at least with Chico State, all the new coaches always start off with the novice rowers. Yeah. And the novice rowers, they are the first year rowing group, and they don't know anything about rowing usually. For you as a coach, especially if you're new, you're just kind of going off of what you were told when you started rowing. Yeah. So then you start thinking back, what did I start off with again?
Yeah. You kind of have to like throw back to 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. Yeah. So some people are good at it. Some are, take a little bit of, nudging. But for the most part, I've really enjoyed the process of helping new coaches develop, only because it's like, hey, I'm going to, we're going to put on the training wheels and we'll kind of lead you towards, in this case, being that very knowledgeable, dependable person. So I feel like coaching the new coaches in this case has helped me develop the idea that it's best to develop the people when it comes to like the people that you're working with, and being in a leadership position. It's more so of like helping them to develop, helping them learn about the whole process, and getting them to, realize this is the responsibilities, this is the scope of like what their role has to do with this team. And it's not so much kind of like managing a coaching staff. I never really thought about it that way. I've always kind of taken it as like every single day there's something that you can learn. So for me, it might be learning how to deal with people. For the new coaches, it's finding out ways to, get information out there to their teammates or the other coaching staff. And because of that, I've been able to be more comfortable with just the act of confrontation, for example. Sure. So with that, going into teaching, it's helped me tremendously with making sure that I get clarity about something, making sure that I ask questions, even if it's just, subjects that seem pretty straightforward. It's always good to ask for clarification and
I think there's a quote about assuming.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, making assumptions isn't really a good thing. And I've realized that through the years for sure. I don't want to assume anyone's motives, but it's always nice to be direct and see what's actually at the base of it.
Wow. Clearly, there's sort of an undertone of you enjoy teaching and educating others, and going through college for the time you did. What was the moment you really realized you had a passion for education?
I felt like it was one of those things that just slowly developed and it became who I was. It's those things where you don't necessarily realize. It
Sure.
just develops over time. So in this case, I can think of like the time that I was sitting in Coach Colleen's office. She's the head coach for Chico State Rowing, and sitting in her office and kind of figuring out like, why is it that I am so motivated to learn every single aspect of rowing, but I can never be able to sit down and do my coursework. And I can't seem to figure out why my grades are so bad. Like, I feel like I'm like, not a good student.
How you can work so hard at something, but also completely not at something else.
Right. So how can you go so hard in one thing and then completely disregard the other, and all of a sudden you're just, I don't know why. Or realizing that you're good at something is like, what does that mean? For me, I mean, it could just be me thinking out loud when I was talking to Coach Colleen. And it helps when you're able to talk about things to another person, only because it helps get out of your head and you start, voicing your thoughts instead of just having that conversation alone. It's really tough to do. Having a conversation alone is very tough to do. Yeah. But having that other person to bounce off of, I realized looking back that I really enjoyed the aspect of, showing someone how to do something.
Sort of sharing knowledge.
Yeah. And just that action alone, like there's different ways to do it. And it's not just one. And I think that's the part that I really liked. Once I started really focusing in on it, then I started realizing in each classroom, every teacher did something different. Maybe it's the way they presented information. Maybe it was how enthusiastic they were. Maybe they paced around the classroom, or maybe they did certain activities, certain warm-ups. Everyone had a different spin on the act of teaching, and I liked that.
Yeah, sort of figuring out, like, why is it that I can really enjoy this class, and then there's this other subject, or maybe even the same subject with a different professor that I just can't get into it. And there is that sort of teaching that goes into it.
Right. So everyone has their own unique spin on something. And what I liked most about teaching is that you have that ability, that freedom, essentially, to do what you want with that information.
Cool. Yeah. And so you've been teaching, coaching, and now you recently picked up sort of looking into maybe starting a business.
Yeah.
How's that going? And what originally inspired that idea?
What I like thinking about everything that I've done till now, I've always been a person that has been into increasing my knowledge in different fields, mostly just being open to new experiences. In this case, I've been working all the time, and I'm always working somewhere different almost every year. So I've always been bouncing around between different jobs, different job titles. And every single time I'm learning more information, more experience. So very manual labor intensive stuff early on, and only because I didn't have certain skills. That's pretty much all I could get. Sure. Once I started getting more education and stuff like that, then I started going to other things like inventory, dealing with inventory management and stuff like that, and branching off to tutoring and so on. But as I've worked more and more places, I've dealt with more and more leadership and how they manage or in this case, how they worked with their team. And after a while, it just be like a really common thing for me, like to start thinking about if, they did this and that and then that, like how would the team change? And then it started developing into like, hey, like, I really want to do this on my own. I'd really want to start doing my own thing. Growing up, I got involved with putting on my own shows, like backyard shows, garage shows, in terms of just like live music. Cool. And I really got into this whole, experience of, having people gathering together and experience something cool, something fun, in this case, music, live music. Yeah. And as I spent more and more time doing different things and, like cooking or cooking and bartending most recently, realized that I really want to do my own thing. And I've spent more time watching videos this past year, YouTube videos in this case.
Sure.
Especially since I've been driving to school. School happens to be 25 minutes out of town. And I've been using that time to watch videos. I'd watch like a 30-minute video and play it on YouTube as it's going through the speakers in my car.
Through the speakers in your car. Okay.
So just to clarify. Just like watching. But yeah, I'd watch a video, an interview, whatever it is. Maybe it's some instructional thing. I'd watch it going out, and I'd watch another one coming back. And after a while, the topics that I were watching was different things. Even if I was on a drive, for example, from Fresno to Chico, I might play an interview. I might play. Essentially, all this input was building up, and
just learning a lot of small things.
Learning small things. All of a sudden, I was like, you know what would it take to start my own thing, my own business? So I started researching videos to watch, and I've been playing them every single day I've been in the car, whether I'm going to work or whether I'm driving to Fresno or going out of town. So I started building up the knowledge of what it takes to build a business, going through the Secretary of State, whether you want to do a sole proprietorship or an LLC or an S-Corp, all that stuff, and legality, and, what is it like to run your own restaurant? What are some common faults with having your own, restaurant business and all that stuff, and start going through the rabbit hole of YouTube videos, in this case, instructional and informational YouTube videos. And after a while, I was like, well, you know what? I could get something going. It seems like it might be a very daunting task, but, maybe I can try something out. And I've just been watching more and more videos in terms of like financials and building up business plans and, figuring out how to pitch your business, especially if you're looking for investors, and creating your pitch deck and all this stuff. And I've slowly started implementing all these things. And one of the big ones for sure that I've been going off on is looking into business credit, building up fundability in your business. And what I've come down to now is kind of, I've already started building the framework, and I'm starting I'm starting to get to that point where I need to, branch out and get more people involved, build up my team.
So with that sort of starting to build the team, and what is the business? What's the progress on it? I know last time we spoke, you were sort of looking into a lease or.
Oh, yes. So where I'm at currently is, the idea that I have in general is tying into downtown Chico. So walking around downtown Chico or just hanging out, especially since I work at a downtown bar called Argus, you quickly realize things, in this case, what's missing.
The holes in the market.
Yeah, the holes in the market. So after watching all these business videos, it's always like when it comes to making your own business, you want to make sure you're actually able to, like the good businesses in this case, they find those gaps in the market, and their business is essentially a solution to a certain problem in the area.
Yeah.
And I feel like the big problem here is that when it comes to downtown, not everywhere is open at all times. In this case, Madison Bear Garden happens to be the most stable place of business downtown. They happen to be open almost every day. Their times are very, very stable. So people can always look to going to the Bear for a good time, But when it comes to downtown Chico or Chico in general, it's like you only have a few spots in this case to do fun, engaging activities, whether you're by yourself, whether you're with a small group or a party. People always associate Chico with kind of like this drinking culture,
Sure.
So the problem that I've encountered in this case is, one, when it comes to being downtown, is like, what fun things can you do besides going to a bar and going to a restaurant, besides going to eat somewhere, going to drink.
That is pretty accurate for the description of downtown Chico.
Right. So you don't really have very many options. And
the
I know
most exciting thing in the past month is that another bar opened back up.
Right. That was the most exciting thing about the new year. A new bar opened back up. But yeah, in this case, I really want to push for a different experience in Chico. There's been so much push for controlling the situation, in this case, reducing the hours of the bars being open, perhaps, or whatever it is that the town is trying to do to kind of help control the chaos of
mitigate.
Yeah, all that stuff. And I feel like if we offer a new experience, then it can kind of change things. So that's why
rather than saying don't do this, it's, hey, here's something else.
Yeah, here's something else that you can do. And the idea that I have for this business is a Japanese, inspired karaoke restaurant. So it will be, karaoke box setup is a little more focused on the Japanese style, where you have private rooms, booths, in this case, where you have, your TV screen and all the stereo hookups with the speakers and your mics and such. And, you can have your own little private experience with your group. You can have food get brought in, and your drinks get brought in, and you can have a good time, have your own experience. And this place that I'm thinking about brings in different aspects. You have the karaoke box experience, and then you have
which is something that's not drinking downtown.
Right, which is
and
something
there's
not drinking.
Pretty much nothing else.
Right. So you have the ability to kind of like do something else, People can come in, and let's say they just want to pop in and get a study group together and hang out in one of the private rooms, and maybe they work on their presentations or their speeches or something like that. Or maybe they have a group and they want to come in and rent a console and play some video games on the TV. That works too. Sure. But yeah, the big thing that I have for my business is just kind of going into a new experience, something different, something a little bit more productive and healthy, Yeah. So yeah, that's the very foundation of what I have planned.
Right on. Yeah, it sounds great. And so what are some of the barriers that you've faced so far, and how have you overcome those?
I've been taking it step by step mostly. It can be very daunting for sure. In this case, having to worry about funding is the biggest thing, really. Sure. Yeah. So that's why
karaoke machines cost money.
Karaoke machines cost money, yeah. Among everything else. So what I've done is researched funding, business funding. What is it that you can do to get money for your business. And a typical thing would be bank loans, but bank loans are very hard to get to, especially if you haven't had your business operating for a few years and you have cash flow going. If you don't have that, it's going to be pretty hard to get, a bank loan. So then you start worrying about other things. And it's very common for people to fund their business with other people's money.
OPM,
yeah. If you don't have it yourself, then other people's money is the way to do it. And I've mostly been working on using business credit, getting trade lines, like that type of stuff to at least kind of build up the supplementary funding.
Yeah.
So I've been doing the little steps here and there to kind of build legitimacy with my business, get the name out there, get everything set up with the Secretary of State, have the LLC formed, have my business phone number, have everything set up with 411, and, making sure that all my addresses match, and reaching out to vendors and getting net 30 accounts and get them to, eventually start reporting to the credit bureau. So that way my business score or my credit score on the business end starts going up. And from there I can start getting more accounts set up. I can get store credits and building up my business credit. So I have lines of credit that is just, going up and up with each trade line. And that's just the stuff that I'm trying to do to stay resourceful. So that way I'm not just, sitting here and, hoping for that one investor to just drop all their money into. It's like, hey, I can't do anything until I have so-and-so money.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I've heard a lot is, especially when it comes to getting financing, is in the same way we trust things that have a review on Amazon, by having one investor or one lender, it sets you up saying, oh, well, if they're willing to trust you with their money,
right,
then why can't I? And then it's a much easier pitch as long as it's not the first one in.
Right. Yeah. So the first one's a tough one.
Yeah.
But it's going to take a lot of reaching out. It's going to take a lot of trials for me to actually hook those initial investors. So where I'm at currently is I'm pretty much just tidying up my pitch deck, getting ready for that, those sessions with potential investors.
Cool.
And yeah.
Well, best of luck. I think you'll do great. I honestly think you have a good pitch to fill in the market in Chico. That is also really community oriented.
Yeah.
Which is providing a service that, the city needs, but nobody's offering. So.
Yeah. Well, the idea keeps developing into more and more things as the days go by. So the strength of the idea now is really getting settled in my head and becoming easier to lay out. And the more people that I talk to about it, the more excited they are.
Yeah.
So I think it's easy for me to find people that can be inspired to work in a place like this. I feel like the big hurdle really is just the getting used to this uncomfortability of like finding investors, really, because it's a new field for me.
Well, you just gave a pitch to probably 17 people.
17 people is good enough for me. But yeah, it's always connecting with the people that and seeing who they know and branching off from there. So we'll see where that gets me.
Yeah. Well, I'll definitely put you in touch with the people from Chico Start, and they talk to investors, so maybe you can get in touch that way.
Yeah, it's a good way to get going. Cool. What is it that you'd like to do with your project?
With this project?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's going back to what you just said. The more I talk about it, the more I understand what I want it to be. I think there's a lot of podcasts out there. There's a lot of people doing these. I think in my day job, I meet a lot of interesting people. It's called the Saorsa Podcast because the idea is, we all have some free time in the week, and we can try to do something that either improves ourselves, that builds a project, whatever it may be. I mean, the only time you don't have free time is when you're building your own business on the side, or, aspiring for a credential, or, all these things. So I really just want to inspire more people to, rather than sit on TikTok or sit on Netflix for, in their free time because they don't know what else to do, to aspire towards making a project, joining their community, getting more involved. Because I think, especially after the pandemic, I've definitely forgotten how much I enjoyed that because I was doing that a lot, prior to the pandemic, and then coming out of the pandemic, especially with sort of the reins of the presidency with the AS, it's sort of just rekindled that, and I want to share that with everyone else who still feels kind of disassociated from community, and just saying like, hey, at the end of the day, it's just people coming together, people talking, people working hard and working out what they want to do. And I think if the podcast can inspire one person to do that, and then if I can keep meeting people who are doing cool things, that's I think that's the sort of vision. So,
is there anything that you'd like want to focus on, or in particular?
I mean, so whenever I do a research, and I know we've talked about this when it comes to like starting your business. Yeah. When I do research around, especially online content, the idea is to really be successful, especially in a quick manner. You need to niche down. You need to, really target your audience and go for it that way. But I think there's a level of variety in my life through rowing and the AS, similar to you, just doing lots of different things and enjoying learning new things and meeting new people through all that. And I don't think I'd want to niche down to just talk to entrepreneurs or just talk to, local leaders or just talk to, I don't want to niche down that far because I don't see a reason to limit. And the way I see this is it's going to be on YouTube and Spotify and all that forever, or at least for as long as I want it to be up there. And so, anyone finding the thing they were looking for, trying to learn about teaching, or is a teacher and wants to start a business, I mean, I think I see it as a way for any individual listener to hear, oh, that's one person's story, but also anyone to come in and find it and go, oh, so that's how you made that transition into teaching, or, that's what it's like being a rowing coach, or, with my other guests, just a variety of things. So I kind of like having the variety of guests, and I don't want to niche down too much.
Okay. So when it comes to the guests that you had so far, what made you decide on your questions for them?
Yeah, so far I've had a lot of, I'm doing my first, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'm doing my first podcast with someone I don't know super well. But for the most part, I've just picked up people that I enjoy talking to, or that I know are working on interesting projects, or were available / just enjoyable. So the way I've gone about picking questions is I've just thought about, kind of the same way you design a lesson plan, what can I help this person teach other people, if that makes sense? Okay. Like, how can I help you pass your knowledge through the internet without you having to, set up the studio and, post it and edit it and all that stuff. And so,
So then for the people that you had these interactions with, do you feel like you might be interested in doing, checkups on them? If you, in this case, you're kind of seeing what they're developing or seeing what they're interested in, what would you say to kind of like checking back in and say, hey, we had this person back a while, and we'll just check to see what they're up to now,
Yeah, I think I do want to check back in with everyone. First of all, it just gives me an excuse to check in with my friends, especially after I move.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think every episode is better than the last, and my main goal is just improve the quality for every episode and then continue to get interesting people. And so just kind of making that continuous improvement every day. Like you said, it doesn't all come together at once. You don't just start a business one day. You set up the credit lines, you do all this stuff. And so continuously developing the quality of the content, understanding what an audience enjoys, understanding how to make an enjoyable show. I'd love to check back in with people to A, tell where their story's gone, and then B, just give them the chance to provide their value in a more improved production.
I see. So for someone checking in, or in this case, checking in with your content, what would you say is your focus on value? Like, what's the most valuable thing that you can provide?
Me personally?
Yeah.
That's a big question. I think I talk to a lot of interesting people, and I've always been, I think at least, good at asking questions to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And so being a very extroverted person and surrounding myself with people who are relatively successful, I think it gives other people, I hope other people can learn from the way I interact with people on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Because my goal here is really to say, hey, here's this person. I mean, so far I've known every guest, but here's how you just go about learning something from the people around you, because there's so much to learn from everyone. Mm-hmm. I think like one of the reasons I love talking is because I love to hear people's perspective, to question my own beliefs, to learn something new, to be exposed to a new idea. That's really the value, is just how does someone go about that, and then obviously the value of whoever's on the show as well.
I see.
Yeah.
So is there a certain goal that you want to go for?
I think my short-term goal is to get to like 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. And the reason is I do want to monetize the show. And the primary reason is because I entirely plan to get a full-time job out of school. I'm going to be working regardless. But I would love to be able to improve the production quality, shorten the pipeline, trade some of my time, like hire an editor, for example. I'd love to see that in the future. So I can keep making the show and keep making it well. And I think the types of careers that I'm interested in getting into and have reasonable expectations to get into, I'll continue to meet extraordinary people. And so my short-term, medium goal is make enough money to have the show pay for itself and just continue creating excellent content and have conversations with cool people. Mm-hmm. So, because that's what I enjoy doing.
Very nice.
Yeah. So I have one question. I think this is my cap off question that I'm going to start asking everyone. Okay. I asked it to Brady on the previous episode.
Okay.
You have kind of been on a roller coaster going through school and finding your job, it sounds like you're still looking for your niche, trying to figure out what you love and enjoy, but what is the most valuable mistake of your life? What is a mistake that under no circumstance you would ever take back?
A mistake, you say?
Mistake or failure, however you want to phrase it.
Are you saying one instance?
It can be broad. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, oh, I said the wrong word when I asked to go to prom. Oh. But, that would be one mistake. But it could just be like, I think that was the wrong route to go down, but it led to this or whatever it may be.
Right. So what I've come to realize is that mistakes and failures are extremely valuable. So I cannot pin it on just one. But the realization of mistakes being beneficial has been a very recent change for me. For a while, I was definitely scared of, kind of getting into failure or kind of making mistakes. And because of that, you really started limiting, what things you'd actually do or would like to do. You start preferring certain things over others. So then you start reducing the amount of risk that you get yourself into. And what I've come to realize, in this case after those countless videos on my drives, is that it's really a good idea to kind of have almost like a statement of purpose, something that you are holding on to with every day that passes. Pretty much that kind of it's not necessarily what goal you have for your life, but it's pretty much like this motto that you have for yourself. You know, your statement of purpose is just, what is it that you are doing? What is it that you're striving for? What is it that you will own up to? So realizing everything that I've gone through, my experiences, every little mistake has led up to who I am now. Every risk that I've taken, that I've not taken. So you can say the mistake of not doing something, definitely one of those things. You know, I have no idea what could have happened if I did do something or not.
Sure.
But because of that, I've come to enjoy the roller coaster. Like you said, the roller coaster of life.
Yeah.
Struggle, mistakes, all of that I have come to realize is just how life is.
Right.
So it just depends on what you do about it. So that is what I've ultimately told myself, that I will do my best to build up all my experiences, stockpile into my database of, you know, what I know and what I don't. So that way, when something pops up, I know how to handle it. And since I've been leading my life in that way, I have been able to go through just unbelievable things, really. So it can be tough decisions, sure, easy ones, yeah. But overall, I've really felt like I've grown exponentially once I shifted my mindset that mistakes and failures are, if not more important than your success in certain things.
Right on.
So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely feel the same way. I think being scared of failure is scared of success in many ways.
Yeah,
because you'll never learn. So that's our show. Thank you very much for watching the Saorsa Podcast. Do you have any wrap-up comments?
Well, looking forward to what you do next, that's for sure. And overall, I just hope that anyone that's interested in providing something,
Capital.
Anyone who's really interested in kind of providing a new experience for Chico, definitely don't be afraid to reach out. There are lots of things that I want to get involved in, different projects for sure. Yeah, in this case, utilizing this new thing that's developing NFTs and such. There's certain ideas for a project that I have.
You got to watch my previous episode about NFTs.
Yeah, so yeah, that's going to be a unique experience, that's for sure. But ultimately, for those of you that are in Chico and around town, just know that the place that I have in mind will be a place where you pretty much enjoy your own experience. So whatever that may be, that's something to look forward to. Right. So yeah.
Alrighty. With that, thank you very much for watching the Saorsa Podcast. Please consider subscribing, following, pass it on to your friends. I really appreciate anything you can do. Thank you. Goodbye.
Well, thanks for tuning in. And hopefully you've enjoyed what's been going on so far. If you want to get involved with future drops and more content, please make sure you like and subscribe.